My grandfather in Poland actually owned a rope factory, and they made ropes for British ships and I think Russian ships, and so had a fairly thriving business. They were from Radymno, Poland, and until the war, had a very good livelihood. They had 4 children. My father, he had an older brother, Oscar, and he had 2 sisters, Frida and Esther were the 2 sisters. And as I said, my grandfather passed away, and then in 1939, when they had the Nazi-Soviet pact, the divided Poland, half went to Germany and half went to the Soviet Union, or the Russians. My father and my grandmother and my 2 aunts both lived in the town of Radymno, which ended up being on the Russian side. And my uncle, we called him Oscar, that's how we knew him, but I just found out his name was Osias, which is probably his Polish name. He ended up on the German side. So on my father's side, this is the story that I remember hearing from my father, that they were asked by the Russians, they were told that if anyone wanted to retain their Polish citizenship, they needed to go and register. And when they went and registered, anyone who registered to retain their Polish citizenship, regardless of whether they were Jewish or not, were then put on a train to Siberia. So it was not a very pleasant experience. And my father, grandmother, and my 2 aunts ended up spending about 5 years in a Siberian prison camp. And the youngest aunt, Esther, who is my middle name, passed away there. She got very sick and had pneumonia and died. And my grandmother at one point fell, and they didn't set her. She broke her leg, they didn't set it right, so then she was on crutches for the rest of her life. And she was born in 1876, so she would have been, at that time, what, 40, 60, probably my age, and here she is in a Siberian camp with her son and 2 daughters, and losing one of the daughters. My father told a lot of stories about being in that camp and, he had dysentery, he almost died from that. He said they were in these very cold bunks, and you'd wake up in the morning and someone next to you would be dead. That's how bad it was. From the sense that I have of my father, he was a real survivor, and he found a way to, he told me he somehow got holds of cigarettes, and he was able to sell the cigarettes and get money, and then use the money to get extra food. And so he was, in a sense, like a wheeler dealer, and you sort of had to be to survive there. So when the war ended, he said they had to walk 30, this is what he told me, 30 kilometers to the train, and he had to carry my grandmother the whole time because she couldn't walk. And then after the war, they ended up back in Munich in a displacement camp there. And I'm not sure how they got there, but that's where they ended up.